want to say welcome to Micaiah, the pharmacist from Free Haven Farms. Fire, what's going on?
Bless up. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Finally.
No, a serious thing, trying to connect for a little bit. And for those unaware, the man blessed me with some Scotch bonnet peppers that he made that we will be using to hot up the pot later on. So I want to get right into it, right? For those unaware, please explain the difference between genetically modified food, organic food, and why pesticides are so dangerous.
Okay, so it's a loaded question, but I'm going to try to make it concise. All right. So, GMO stands for genetically modified organisms. Now they've changed the terminology. It's called bioengineered food. Okay. What bioengineered food is, what GMO food is when you alter the actual DNA of the plant, all right, the actual chromosome. So in a laboratory, they're able to at a cellular level alter the DNA and the chromosomes within the plant so that it can do specific targeted things. For instance, one of the first GMO um, um, products, plants, fruits that was created was a tomato, and they wanted this tomato to be like more cold resistant. So they took some chromosomes, some DNA aspects of a halibut, of a fish that dwells in colder waters, and created a tomato with that is now more cold resistant. So although it looks like a regular tomato, right? At a cellular level, it's not the same. And so there's there's been extensive research that has been done about the effects of GMO. A lot of because of politics, a lot of the information is suppressed, and so it's not surface information, and that's why some of the studies that are done on GMO are more accurate when you look at them from countries outside of where we dwell because of the non-political bias that might be involved with disseminating the information. You understand?
Is there any nutritional value in GMO?
There's nutritional value. There's gonna be nutritional value. Is there a difference in nutritional value? Some would argue yes, but that's gonna depend not on the seed. It's gonna depend more on the way that that plant is being grown. Okay, so it's more the danger of what happens to the people that ingest that food that's been altered at a cellular level, of how it can affect us. Now, with organic food, it's food that hasn't, it's natural. So there is no altering that's happened to it. And I want you to understand, I'm going to add another element too, because people talk about hybrid. Okay, so hybrid can still be organic. All right. Hybrid has to do with cross pollination. Cross pollination happens naturally in nature all the time. All right. If I have a squash plant that grows next to a watermelon plant, there's a chance that a bee, if these two plants are acceptable to each other, right? There's a bee that can actually cross pollinate those two plants, and I get a fruit that has characteristics of the squash and of the watermelon. That's cross pollination. Like I said, that happens in nature all the time. It's kind of a means that nature used to preserve itself, you know. And what man has been able to do was be very intentional and specific about creating environments that make things cross pollinate. And even, without using insects, man can, pollinate plants. Like, George Washington Carver used to do it all the time with the paintbrush. He would he would pollinate plants. And so in controlled greenhouses and stuff, they can create these scenarios that this cross pollination happens, and now you have a yellow watermelon. Now you have a red pepper. You know what I'm saying? Now you have, and they can do things like that. You know, but that is happening through the pollination process and not at a cellular level, the DNA, the chromosomes, of the plant, like with GMO and bioengineered food. I hate to be long winded about it, but that's the best way I could kind of explain that.
And also, could you delve more into organic? Because I hear
Yeah.
different things. I hear some organic still has pesticide on it, but it's not to the level of other things. Can you clarify that, please?
So let's be clear. Organic is a label. It's a label on the food. You know what I'm saying? Do you know it's organic? Do I know it's organic? We hope it's organic. That's that's the truth. You know what I'm saying? We got our fingers crossed. We praying. You know what I'm saying? But we weren't there when it was planted. We weren't there when it was watered. We weren't there to see what kind of fertilizer was. We don't know those things. What we rely on is a system that was created to regulate organic certification, right? And this regulation involves organic farms being inspected and having to adhere to certain growing practices. So there's certain chemicals that they are not allowed to use. There's some that they are allowed to use. Some of them that they're not allowed to use can change from year to year based on, I don't know, some lobbying that was done. So it could get tricky, you know what I'm saying? But is it better than what you have, like the options that are available? Of the options that are available in front of you at the store, it is the best of those. Because the fact that there's any kind of regulation going on with it creates more safety to you as the consumer to know that they're supposed to not be spraying pesticides and certain chemicals on this food. There's a documentary on YouTube from this Dr. Zach Bush on chemical farming. Anyways, he did a lot. He does a lot of study and research on glyphosate, and there's another one from Dr. Tyrone Hayes on atrazine, right? And so these are chemicals that are heavily used on our produce. We've all been exposed to these chemicals, all of us, like it or not, because it's in groundwater. It's everywhere. They sprayed something like, I don't know, it's over 2 billion pounds of glyphosate on food a year. 4 billion pounds of glyphosate a year in the U.S.
And what are some of the dangers of that chemical or documented
Yeah, and
dangers?
so as you're gonna see when you start to do your research, like this is like the and like I said, some of this research and information is suppressed. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I appreciate that Dr. Zach Bush, because he's put his life on the line to bring forth really some truths about glyphosate and its connection to cancer, its connection to Alzheimer's, its connection to dementia, its connection to autism, its connection to so many things. And he's been able to do some great research, documented, to show at what time we started to use these products in our agriculture, and the direct correlation with the spike in these immune disorders, and all these diseases, all these problems, that were kind of on the have since been like directly connected, with how much we're being exposed to this and how much these things spike. And I'm not going to be the one to say, like, I'm not the professional in that aspect of things. All I can do is know from my own personal experience, and there are certain facts that can't be argued, like the nutritional content of food. So that's something that I'm like, I control what I can control. and the nutritional content of food differs. Like I said, sometimes with the organic food, maybe as opposed to conventional food that would be sprayed, and that has to do with the soil and how much health is in the soil. And when you grow your food a certain way, sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture, organic agriculture, you pay attention to these details of the soil. And you do things to build your soil up in a natural way without using harmful fertilizers that actually deplete your soil and kill the life in the soil and make you dependent on the fertilizers. That's the plants get their nutrients, their vitamins, their minerals, their life, their energy from the soil. They eat from the dirt. So if the dirt ain't right, the plants ain't gonna be right. The plants ain't right, the people ain't gonna be right. They say that you have to eat something like 6 oranges today to equal the same nutritional value of what one orange was like in 1950. That's not that long ago. What do you think it is 30, 20 years from now? Like at that rate. And so there's a lot of little nuances that we teach and that we pay attention to at Free Haven Farms. To, like I said, educate people, because education is key. And as you become educated, now you can make informed decisions about how you want to move. Because honestly and truly, the only way you can know it's organic is if you grow it, or if you know your farm, like really know your farm. I'll be like, this is how I grow my food. I'll show you. Come over to the farm. We'll do a workshop. Let me teach you. That's transparency that you want to be able to have with your farmer. You want to be able to ask them, do you spray glyphosate on your food, without him getting offended? And if he gets offended by you asking him if he sprays glyphosate on his food, then you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I need to deal with you, because I'm asking questions pertaining to my health. You know what I'm saying? But that's the only real way you're gonna know if it's organic outside of the label. You know what I'm saying? But yes, you got an organic certification that are gonna regulate your farm. They're gonna come and inspect your farm. I know as a farmer what those inspections look like. It's limited in what how much they can inspect. If it's scheduled, I know you're coming. It's easy for me to set it up for your inspection. If I got 100 acres, you're only gonna look at a quarter of an acre. You know what I'm saying? It's so, you feel me? At the end of the day, what we really want to be doing is growing our own food.
We always hear that it's important to buy local food, but I want to hear your perspective on why that really matters. What are the environmental, economic, and health benefits when people choose to support local farmers?
This is a huge one. This is this is a big problem in so many ways. But it's the way that the food system is set up right now. Okay. But this is where I believe education and people like myself and other people being intentional can create change. But right now, like 60% of the food in America is imported.
In
In
big
this
old
country,
America, 60% of food's
at,
imported.
at, at least, you know what I'm saying. It might be a higher number right now. And then when you get into certain specific sectors like produce, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna see higher numbers. A lot of it's being imported from Canada and from Mexico, you know. And it wasn't like that. Once upon a time, 40% of the food in this country actually came from people growing it in their backyards. 40%. You see what I'm saying? Once upon a time, 1 in every 4 people were, were growing their own food, you know. But things have changed a lot. And so what happens when you have this system that imports all this food is that people become dependent, as we see like during the pandemic, during a hurricane or a snowstorm, the shelves go empty. You know what I'm saying? People are panicking. The supply and demand can't meet it, you know. Most farmers, if you're a good farmer, you no matter how much you grow, you can't grow enough for everybody. So there's still gonna be people that are lacking, and then the way things are set up now, everybody can't afford everything. Everyone can't afford organic, and some people can't even afford conventional. So it's like, really, at the end of the day, when we have more small farms in more regions, now we localize our food system. When we have more people growing their own food, more community gardens, now we localize our food system with the production of the food. Now we have to connect the dots where restaurants, grocery stores, people that buy food could actually keep it local and access the local produce that's being produced in the community. They support, and the two businesses support each other. When you got food that's local, it's better. It has higher nutrition because it's less travel. You see what I'm saying? When people buy my produce at Free Haven Farms, whether we do it through our CSA, whether I set up a farmer's market, or whether you buy it online, we harvest it when it's ripe. We don't have to harvest it weeks in advance because we gotta pack it and then ship it and then truck it and then have it stored and sit on a shelf for a period of time and then be ready. Now, we're not dealing with that, all right? Because what happens is the longer that you wait from the time of harvest, the more nutrients depreciate. When you harvest food that's early, because they'll harvest the orange, it's green. By the time you buy it, it's orange. They harvest the peppers, it's barely, you know what I'm saying? It's green, barely little color. By the time you buy it, it's deep red. That's not sun ripened. That's different. When you have a local food system, you could get food closer to harvest. I said sun ripened. Now that fruit has had a chance to gather all the nutrients that it can, vitamins from the sun, from the soil, its maximum ripeness, its maximum nutrient content, and of course maximum flavor. That's some of the advantages of buying local. You know what I'm saying? Then the carbon print. My queen teaches a carbon cycle course, and the carbon print pollution that's created by having to transport food all over the world all the time is huge. The impact on the environment. When you localize your food system, as we've done at Free Haven Farms, we like another main reason why I wanted to start the farm was I realized we could create jobs. You know what I'm saying? Working in the hood, you see how tough you have it, man. The pockets be tight, and you gotta really stretch your dollar. And then there'd be a lot of people that would work at the farm that would help me do stuff, but they didn't have a job, but they would love to do the work. But they're like, but I gotta go find a job. So spare time, I'll try and pop out. And so I'm like, man, there's actually money in this industry. Yeah. There's just not a lot of less than 2%. 2% of the farmers are black in America. So there's not many people of color that do it. So in my community that I'm working with, we're not seeing the job opportunities and the money. And that's because lots of times we don't have the ownership. We don't own the land. We don't own the farm. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I was like, man, I'm hustling backwards. When I was ready to make my transition from Philadelphia to Lawnside, I had to grow more than food. Yeah. I had to grow other aspects. I had to grow my financial literacy. Right. I had to grow my credit. You know what I'm saying? I had to grow things that I needed so that I can own a space and create a business that in turn I was going to use to create jobs, going to use to educate people, going to use to feed people. But I realized my limitations in feeding people. You know what I'm saying? Because no matter how many watermelons I grow, there's always people that going to want more. You know what I'm saying? I'll use social media, the different channels and platforms to let people know what we growing and get all excited. Can you ship this to me? That I'm in London. What? Can you ship this to me? I'm over. And I'm like, man, there need to be a Free Haven Farms in every neighborhood.
As you spent more time working the land, tilling the soil, and being in rhythm with nature, right? What has it revealed to you about life and even about yourself?
Man. Yeah, man. This like working the land, it saved me. It saved me. I was when I really, like I said, took to this. I was in my 20s. I had my first youth. I was in my 20s, and I needed therapy. I didn't know I needed therapy, but I needed therapy. I was sick, and I needed to detox. I was toxic, and in all these different ways. Like I said, I didn't know at the time, and I was disconnected, man, and just moving, and thinking you know and not knowing, going through mistakes but not learning lessons. You know what I'm saying? And so when I took to the land, it gave me time and space to think, to be by myself, to meditate, to reflect, to hold myself accountable. You know what I'm saying? To do what I call the rough work. You know what I'm saying? Work on myself. And so, like, that changed me a lot. And at that time, it took me out the street. And so I wasn't getting locked up no more because I wasn't out there like that no more. You know what I'm saying? I was changing the things I wanted to learn because I wanted to learn like this stuff now. You know what I'm saying? I was always an entrepreneur, always, working for myself, making my own money. So I was always very passionate about figuring out how to blend my entrepreneurial hustle with this passion to grow food. You know what I'm saying? To touch the land. Yeah, man, I say therapy, bro. It was like a real time to detox from things that was making me toxic, and I didn't know. You don't know till you leave it. You know what I'm saying? You don't know, if you've ever, when you get a chance to travel, you know what I'm saying? You get outside this country, you don't know what it's like to live here till you leave here, and you're like, man, that's the thing. Like, you just always under a thing. And so it was the same thing I felt like once I dove into nature. You know what I'm saying? I started to connect not just to nature, but that's when I started to make some real discoveries about my roots. You know what I'm saying? As a black man and my history. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why certain things are passionate to me and why certain things disgust me. And the hardest person to understand is yourself. That's the hardest person to know. And so that's a constant work. You know what I'm saying? And so even now, I do my most reflection, growth, creative thinking. I come up with my ideas. You know what I'm saying? I figure out problems in that garden, in that space, when I got my hands in the dirt. And I didn't even know at the time about grounding and all that stuff. And then later on, I find out, every time I got my hands in the dirt like that, I'm grounding. I'm actually recentering myself. I'm connecting to the land. I'm doing all this healing. You know what I'm saying? And then even with you know what I'm saying, eating organic, that's what I was on. But there's levels to that. Like I was saying, how you could, you know what I mean? And so like when I really started to eat organic, like only eat what I grow, nah, that was different. I felt a different level of energy, a different level of mental clarity. You know what I'm saying? Food tasted different. I started to heal a lot of things once I was eating. This food just had a different nutrient content. You know what I'm saying? I say it's living food. It's electric. It's literally, you know what I'm saying? You pick it right off the plant and eat it. It's like you pick a flower and you put it in a bottle of water and it could stay alive for 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Keep good water in there. But if you take that flower, pick it, put it on the table for a half hour, and then pick it up and put it in the water, it might not even live. So there's a certain power to harvesting food and eating it right away. It's electrifying. And so that was an experience that changed my life. And that's what the experience that we wanted to give people at the farm. That's why we do so many workshops and have people come out to the farm. You know what I'm saying? To really experience that. The edible tours is a big hit at the farm. People go walk around the space, and we pick okra and they eat it the first time right off the plane, even know you can do that and things like that. I mean, this is the way our ancestors used to do it. You know what I'm saying? And that's really what we tapping back into. And right now, I feel like, you know what I'm saying, is a most important time for people to do this kind of therapy, because we all are like, we're bombarded with so much information, and we're bombarded with so much negativity. As soon as you get on the phone, it's like la 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 la. We bombarded with that. We don't even realize that it be taxing our soul, our spirit. It be taxing our energy. And then you gotta put that thing down. You gotta go through a little digital detox, like every few. Put that thing down, and like you get out there, and that that really gives you time and space to do that. You know what I'm saying? The dirt washes those negative energy, that negative ions off of you. You see what I'm saying? And then that sun is hitting you. It's giving you vitamin D. And enough of us are vitamin D deficient. That's why we got a lot of sicknesses. You see what I'm saying? And that's because we inside too much. We gotta get outside more. You know what I'm saying? You can't be afraid of the sweat. We used to be. But that's the thing. Once you start growing that food, you get out there working the land, you're gonna sweat, and you got a different appreciation for it. You know what I'm saying? And you do your research like, oh, sweating's one of the healthiest things I could do. Oh, that's why everybody running the sauna and the steam room. And every time you sweat, and all your pores opening up, and you letting out all these toxins, you know what I'm saying? But you actually doing that by just working the land and grounding, and getting the sun, picking out, I'm hungry, and you don't even know, you like making yourself, you supercharging yourself. You're making yourself a superhuman when you're doing these things. So some people do it once in a while. I do it every day.
I know many farmers are dealing with labor shortages across the country, right? From your experience, how does this challenge ripple out into America's food supply and farming communities?
Yeah. This year has been very revealing, I think. You know what I'm saying? As far as America's concerned, this country's concerned. With some of the new policies that were put in place with immigrants, you know what I'm saying? You saw a huge deportation happening, you know what I'm saying, to a lot of the farm working community for this country. So there's a lot of black and brown people going back to being deported back to their countries that work a lot of the fields here. And so the ripple effect was farmers that didn't have enough hands to harvest, pack, and handle the food. So I know a lot of farms that are struggling more this year than ever before, because of not having the help. And then it's like the price of food will go up, and there's been a play on tariffs this year, and a lot of the places that tariffs have happened to is places where food is imported into the states, and so the consumer suffers.
That's the part I never understood about the tariff, but continue.
Right. So the price of food is gonna go. It's steadily creeping. It's gonna continue to. It doesn't happen instantly.
Every week, though, it's chipping away.
It's trickling up, and so and it's gonna do more. And so yeah, that's a problem. And the fact that I think that the wages that farmers get paid, I think that farmers, like, you have people like doctors that are there to prescribe medication, right? That get paid they get great salaries. You know what I'm saying? And you got people like farmers that actually like are responsible for feeding people. Like, you can't even get to the doctor before you see the farmer. You see what I'm saying? The farmer could prevent you from seeing the doctor, but you'll never see that farmer with the same salary, you know what I'm saying, or status, as the doctor. And so the fact that we, as a society, don't value farmers and the people that grow food like we should is a problem from the gate. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, that was part of, like, my when I took to building my business, I understood the value of what I do and what we're doing. And so I know that it's important that if you don't value yourself and understand your value, then it's going to be hard for you to make other people value you like that. And so it's important for me even to educate farmers about how valuable they are and do what they can to continue to educate people and raise the value. And I'm not saying that I'm gonna go out and charge $100 for a watermelon, but you know, the way things happening with the food prices, that might happen anyway. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the thing. Like people don't have any control of the food prices. They just gotta pay whatever they tell you to. That's why it's so important to be able to have, access to your own and grow a little something. But yeah, no, I think it's important that farmers value themselves and that people that they choose to have a part of their community value them. And so we've focused on building a community. We've used these certain platforms like doing these podcasts and everything to spread knowledge, and then also build a community where people value the way that we grow our food. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, my food may not be priced the same as Joe Schmo at the farmer's market, but he doesn't grow with the same passion and love and care that I do.
When it comes to black farmers, history shows nearly 90% of their land has been lost due to discrimination, here's property issues, and other barriers. What do you think it will take to rebuild and sustain a thriving network of black farmers today?
So it's been by design that black farmers don't exist in high numbers, because once upon a time, all the farmers in America were black. If you really understand the history of America, you know what I'm saying? When it was at its economic strength, there's a lot of black farmers that was making that happen. You know what I mean? And so it's crazy that there's, like I said, only 2% or less of the farmers in America are black now. That's crazy to think, you know what I mean? But what happened is that, like I said, by design, a system was created. Even more so than the farming aspect, a scenario was created that black people weren't able to own land and have land ownership. Whether it was straight just strong arm, like I'm going to take your land and shoot you dead, or whether it was by some, tactics that like the USDA later on admitted to having certain policies in place that really hindered black farmers from accessing government funds that were available for farmers, government land that was available for farmers. By a system of design that was set up, they weren't able to do these things. And so they later on admitted that and awarded a whole lot of money, to the black community and descendants of, which, there's politics that are tied into all these things that have happened, you know what I'm saying, as far as black people and agriculture. But things are changing. There's more, especially because I kind of sit in this space, I see more people in our community having interest in this than ever before, man. And I'm telling you, because some of these other things have changed. The access to funds. So a lot of black people can now afford to buy that land. And they could afford to buy that tractor and buy a farm manager and have farms, you know what I'm saying? A lot more people are educated now than ever before about how to get around some of these obstacles, how to position themselves in a way to use some of these assets that are available to build their farm, you know what I'm saying? And then more people than ever before, I think, are starting to wake up to how much money, we're talking about $1 trillion industry, we're talking about a lot of money in farm and agro business and the agro industries. And so as people start to see that, and I feel like the entrepreneurial spirit is very much alive in my generation and in the younger generations behind me. And they see this as a viable stream of income. You know what I'm saying? Not just that, but like I said, being able to use certain certain things that are available, tools that are available for agriculture, for farmers to be able to build what you want to build. Yeah, man, it's a lot of opportunity. So with that being said, is there's a shift that's happening, and I'm glad to say that I feel very much like I'm a part of that shift and responsible for people that are seeing the possibility. And we try to make farming cool again. You know what I'm saying? But not even like that. Like it's cool because of how beneficial it is for you and your family. You know, it's cool because of how free you could become. You know what I mean? You're actually creating freedom for your food. And once you have food that's healthy, now we're creating health freedoms. One of the main reasons why I even started growing food was because I understood that there was a health crisis in my family directly, but in our community. Everybody got family members that have diabetes, that have high blood pressure, that have cancer, all right, that have autism in their family, have mental disorders, right? We all Alzheimer's. We all have family like that, and so I realized that was all health issues. That's related to what we putting in our body. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, solution. The solution is the food.
If you had the power to make one major change to America's agricultural system, something that could make it more fair, healthy, and sustainable, what would that change look like?
Um, so if I had to make a change to the agriculture system, it would be to implement free haven farm systems. Let me explain. I think that in agriculture, every neighborhood, every neighborhood has a mayor. The same way you have a mayor, and like every neighborhood might have I don't know, a store, a grocery store, neighborhood grocery store. Every neighborhood, every town, every community should have a growth space, a community growth space, where people can have the grow plots, can whatever, you know what I'm saying? But it should be something that is supported by design, set up is tax dollars cover it the same way they cover the firemen, and these spaces exist. The other thing is that within the agriculture system, once upon a time, right, there was these gardens. You look this up, called Victory Gardens. This was a part of the USDA initiative. So we talking about the Department of Agriculture. These Victory Gardens, this was during the time of the war. I believe it was the Second World War, First World War and the Second World War. I think they rolled these things out. But when a lot of the men were all fighting, so they weren't there to take care of the farms, especially across farm America. You got to think about America, the Midwest, and like a lot of America is just farm land. You know what I'm saying? And so the men weren't there to really be taking care of their farms. And so there were and not just that, but a lot of the food that was being made was being used for the soldiers. So they had to subsidize food that was no longer available in the grocery stores because they're using it to feed these soldiers. And so they created this Victory Garden program where the government would give seeds, they would give fertilizer, they would give information, specific instruction, they would give every household everything they needed to grow their own food. And at that time, 40% of the food in this country came from people that were growing it in their backyard. Whereas opposed to now, like 60% of this food is imported. So now having a system like that, reenacting a system like that, where government funded, money, all this money that gets mandated to all these other things. Now we mandate this money to this program again, and we're empowering people to grow their own food. Not just empowering, we're encouraging, because during this campaign, you gotta remember how propaganda, how stuff used to spread, and commercials were done back then. So there were commercials with Superman in the garden with the with the cabbage heads and stuff, because they really was pushing an agenda and they wanted people to do that. So not just to put, but actually pushing the agenda and the initiative. So now we have 1 in every 3, 1 in every 4 household growing food. So now the total stress on the demand for food comes down. All right. Not just that, the neighborhood grocery stores are supported by these neighborhood garden grow spaces. These neighborhood grow spaces are powered by sweat equity of people in that community that actually realize that this investment in this work is going to pay dividends in how healthy the food is that we have available to us. Now that relationship happens where you realize that what you do affects how healthy you are and your children and everyone else. And the people in that community now take responsibility for their health and have access to their food. And you've localized your food system. And your restaurants work together with local growers, whether it's the community grower or Joe Schmo that has his garden in his backyard, one of the 3 farmers. And we create systems where these people that are growing food can now actually make money off of excess food that's being grown in the grocery store. It's, you know what I'm saying? And when we get talking about export, now we talking about export from New Jersey to like New York so that my folks over here that don't have as much or export to Florida or you know what I'm saying, but we staying within our own region even still.
Please explain what farmer subsidies are for those unaware.
Yeah, so farmer subsidy might be that the government creates, this, you have a government mandated seed company that is selling seeds. And let's say, a lot of farmers monocrop. The biggest farms in America monocrop. When I say monocrop, they only grow one thing.
That's not good for the soil.
It's not good for anything. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for the soil. It might be good for the farmer's wallet, right? And so they monocrop. And in doing that, I'm talking about a big farm. I'm talking about 2,000 acres of corn. And the government says for that 2,000 acres of corn, if you use these seeds, we'll give you $1,000 for every acre.
I was recently with a guest, right? And he was speaking about how this is the heights of distraction. And earlier you spoke about us being distracted, and so many food policies have been passed that are not beneficial to us. Can you speak about that, please?
Yeah, man. A lot of these policies have to do with who's in office. And so things that might be, let's say a stipulation one year, you might say, oh, for you to be considered organic, you can't use this chemical here, all right, because of X, Y, Z. The next year, they say, okay, you could still be organic, can't use nothing. And that chemical that we say you can't use before, you could use that now and still be considered organic. And you'll find that company, that chemical company, then paid big money to make that policy happen. And now they're going to make a lot of money off of that policy change. And so that's the game that be being played, you know what I'm saying, with a lot of regulations that's supposed to happen in agriculture. It's not so much regulations as politics. And what should be the biggest concern, which is the consumer safety, isn't at the height of the discussion. You gotta follow the paper trail. It all comes down to dollars and cents all the time. You know what I mean? And so, when you have places like Monsanto's, who was bought out by Bayer, they create patents on seeds and they tell farmers, like I said, then that seed will go into a contract with the government. And now that's a government mandated seed. and the farmer now gets subsidy for using that seed.
You're
And
penalized for not using that seed
you're
as a farmer.
penalized for not using it because
You have access to the subsidies.
they made the agriculture game so tight. It's very labor intensive. There's a high overhead in agriculture. Because of that high overhead, it's very hard to make a profit in agriculture. I've been able to be profitable because of my creativity. I have a lot of different streams of income that I've created off of my farm. My ingenuity is what. But if I was just a farmer, I'd be dying out here. I'd be out of business already. Because the way that, like I said, the game is rigged, it's so tight. Like, you gotta look at this. You gotta really get out there and try and grow some food, and then understand how much. Oh, excuse me. You gotta really and then you gotta look and see how much time, energy, and effort it took to grow 100 pounds of eggplant. From watering them things every day, planting it from seed, the greenhouse, the people you pay to harvest it, package it, all that, 100 pounds of eggplant. And then you see how much you're going to get paid for that 100 pounds of eggplant. It don't make no sense. It don't add up.
So
You're going to go
subsidy.
under.
You need the subsidy to
The
survive.
only way you're going to make profit most of
Just
the
farming.
time in the agro industry is by getting that subsidy.
It seems like you really need to use the fertilizer and the pesticide because you can't afford for these crops to not reach.
Yeah, for a lot of farmers, they're under that pressure that they have to produce.
Sounds like doctors, they only see
Yeah.
you for 15 minutes, then off to the next person.
Right. You know what I mean? And because of that pressure, they got to do what they have to do to try to survive. And so, like I said, I understand why they do what they do. A lot of them are changing the way that they move now because they understand the long-term effects. So some of this stuff is like irreversible. We're losing topsoil.
I was gonna ask, man. I remember a guy in North Jersey told me this a long time ago. He said, this was like, he was born in 2013, so this is like 2011, and he told me, I was reading, Layla Africa and all that, and he was telling me, he laughed. I was like, how's it so? He said the soil destroyed already.
Yeah, soil problem, man. It's eroding away. The rate of pollution and the rate of which nature needs to recover, there's not enough time to recover from the damage that's being done. And so compared to years ago, you have like a lot less topsoil to even grow food on in spaces like this. But that's because of agricultural practices that have been the same for years and years. And like I said, farmers being under this pressure. Things are starting to change now. Even the USDA now has initiatives that they offer for sustainable agriculture. They have programs that they do to encourage farmers and help farmers get organic certification. They have things that they're doing because they realize, like, hold up, we got to play a part in trying to change the way that agriculture is being done. Because if we continue at this trajectory, we're not going to have nothing left.
Don't you have to rotate the crop and let the soil rest?
Yeah, so when you discuss sustainable agriculture, and you'll hear that term, you'll hear regenerative agriculture, you'll hear that term. Those are practices and principles that you use within the way that you grow food that help to regenerate, rebuild, and regrow your ecosystem. And so everything is all connected. It's a very sensitive balance between everything. The soil, the insects, the microorganisms, the biology that exists, the birds, the ecosystem is all connected. And so when you do things like diversify your crops or rotate your crops and don't plant the same thing in the same space year after year, what you do is you rebuild your soil.
Sound like life.
Yes. All right. Certain plants need specific things that they're looking for in the soil, and another plant might have a different thing that it needs more of in the soil. So if I plant, for instance, collard greens right here, callaloo, they need nitrogen. The greens, leafy greens, they love nitrogen. They need a lot of nitrogen. So if I plant them there, they're gonna take all the nitrogen out of the soil. They're gonna draw a lot of nitrogen out of the soil. So the next thing I plant there shouldn't be another leafy green because I need to rebuild that soil. So usually I'll plant something like that might flower, cucumbers, tomatoes. That's a flowering vegetable. That flowers, gets pollinated, and then turns into a fruit. Different than a leafy green. Your flowering vegetables need phosphorus. They need a good amount of phosphorus in the soil to encourage and help that plant go through its flowering stage before it goes to fruit.
The weather. How has the weather been affecting crops?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like sometimes my body's shocked.
Yeah.
How the weather's off.
Yeah.
So I know the crops are definitely shocked.
Yeah. It's an interesting time we living in, bro. I've been growing food my whole life, but what I'm most connected to is when I started in my 20s. So, the past 20 years or so, I've really seen a change in the environment, you know what I'm saying, and in the weather. I've lived in different spaces. It's different down south than up north. But what I have seen is especially right now is more extremes. You know what I'm saying? When we go through our rainy weather and our rainy season, it's real extremes. Flooding, there's like days and days of very intense rain, you know what I'm saying? And so we have to build, grow systems that have great drainage so that we can deal with that. You know what I mean? We have to be strategic. And then we go through these large droughts. We go through periods of time we don't get no rain for. Last year, I think I went through the longest drought I could ever remember, bro. It was like 4 months, 5 months, no rain, bro. Never seen nothing like it. You know what I mean? Like I'm in Arizona. You know what I'm saying? I'm serious, right here in Jersey. I couldn't believe it. And so we gotta get strategic for that time too, And then it's warmer, people talk about the temperature heating up, you know what I'm saying? And we feel that. We feel our winter ends sooner. So I'm in the soil at the beginning of the year earlier than ever before right now. So usually February, I'm in the soil, and I'm that's my birthday month. So I know, like February usually downtime for me. Like the ground frozen. I can't even can't even dig into it. But now, last few, I'm starting a lot of things in February outside in the soil, And then the end of the season, I got plants that overwinter right now that make it right through the winter, more so than ever before.
What plants are those?
Swiss chard, I have that usually overwinters for me. Some of my kale will overwinter, especially red Russian kale. That's very cold tolerant kale. Let's see. We have a lot of our herbs that overwintered. We have some thyme that kept going through the winter, and some of our rosemary will tough it out. So yeah, certain things, that just would never make it through the winter, they would die off once it got cold, are now making it through the winter. We do things to encourage what they call season extender. So we use some low tunnel like roll covers to like kind of warm up. It's like a blanket for your plants.
With all the experience you've had, right, tilling the soil, being outside, what are some of the similarities you've noticed between humans and plants?
Oh man, a lot, so many. I discover new ones. I feel like every day. Seriously, one of my heroes, very inspirational people, is George Washington Carver. I study him, and he studied the plants. And his lessons were from there, and he understood that the connection between plants and people. He used to talk to the plants. I believe there's a lot of science to that, and understanding that that's a living entity. Your plant is a column of energy, just like you, and so your plant is same percentage of water. Like I was saying, humans are 75, 80% water. Same thing as the plants, you know. Um, Humans, to be healthy, we need certain things, certain vitamins, certain minerals. We need zinc, magnesium, copper, you know what I mean? Calcium, iron, you know what I'm saying? We need all these things that's in the soil that the plants need to be healthy too, you know? Potassium, I mean, the list goes on and on. You'd be amazed to look at what plants need in the soil and then look and see what humans need to be healthy. It's the same things. And then even things like the sun powers the plants. You know what I mean? They take and the same thing with us, man, and that sun and what it does for us, the vitamin D. You know, plants uh, uh, need space. You know what I mean? Plant your plants too close together, they're not gonna grow. Not gonna grow well at all. If at all. They may die literally because they don't have enough space. And that's why it's very important to know the personality of the plant. Plants have personalities just like people. So, my kids got, they all got different personalities. I could look at one kid, just look, and then, whoa, straighten up. The other one, man, it's hard. I'll go over and over. I'm ready to go upside your head. But they different personalities. The same thing with the plants, man. Some plants I could put 3 inches apart. I got my okra plants, they want like 24. They want like 2 feet from each other, Why? Because the okra plant don't grow like 6 feet. And its taproot goes down 16 inches. So it needs a lot of soil. So if I put it in a container, I have to have a big container for the okra plant. But if I grow some lettuce, I can have a shallow container because the root system doesn't go as deep. So you got to know the personality. Excuse me. You have to know the personality of your plant so you could plant accordingly. You know what I mean? And it's just like the same way we interact with people. You have to know the personality of who you're dealing with in your audience so you could move accordingly. Otherwise, you'd be telling a joke that nobody's laughing at. You know what I'm saying? And it's very important. Just to productivity. And I always say, like, I created this acronym in my class that you would learn when you get into Grow Your Own Academy. You're going to learn about laws, right? I say the laws of plant happiness. And the acronym is LAWS, LAWS. And the thing is, plants need to be happy. At the end of the day, as the person growing the food, the person that's gardening, the farmer, you are responsible for making your plant happy. So it's like, you gotta figure out how to make that plant happy. Different plants need different things to be happy. Some plants need 12 hours of sun to be happy. Some plants only need 4 hours of sun to be happy. Some plants need a lot of water to be happy, like watermelon, cucumber, but they 95% water. And then you got other plants that don't need as much water to be happy. You see what I'm saying? And so you move accordingly, but it's important for you to understand, because when you are happy as a person, when you feeling content, when you happy, you are most productive. If you're ornery, if you're anxious, if you angry, if you even hungry, it's hard to be productive as a person. It's the same thing with your plants. Lots of times when your plants go through trouble, it's because they're stressed. They're not happy. It's not getting enough water. It's not getting enough sun. It's not getting enough love, time, and attention. So you have to honor the fact that your job is to make your plants happy. It's like in a marriage, you have to make your wife happy. You understand? That's your job. And her, same thing. And so as you do that work, I understood that with plants, it's LAWS, which is light, air, water, and soil. And that's the laws of plant happiness. And if you take care of your plant to make sure it get enough light, sunlight, it has enough air, it has to be an exchange of oxygen. Plants release oxygen and take in carbon dioxide. And for spacing, like I said, they have to have enough air to breathe. They have to have enough space to be able to thrive. W is water. So you have light, air, water. Plants, you have to drink. Same thing with us. Lots of times, people go through what they think are ailments, and it's just dehydration.
And I see this man at the gym with his coconut water too. So yeah, man, stay hydrated.
It's a fact, man. You know what I mean? Lots of times people think they're hungry. They're dehydrated. And the hunger go away as soon as you drink enough, And And so water is very important.
What has observing? Because I'm thinking about like a watermelon growing, right? What has watching all these things grow impacted your concept of what someone would call God or the universe?
Man, a lot. You know what I'm saying? I think that when you get out there and you grow food, there's nothing that's more empowering. There's nothing that's more empowering. As a man, it's the closest thing we can do to giving birth. You're not blessed to be a woman, carry a youth, 9 months, and birth them. But as a man, you could plant the seed. You could water it. You can make it grow all the way to a fruit that you pick and eat. That's a journey. That's a journey. And every time you grow a plant, you go on that journey. You understand? And that patience, that foresight, that vision, that work is a metaphor for everything else in your life. Because everything in your life starts as a seed of an idea. So that's it. Whatever inspired you, whatever gave it to you, that seed of an idea. And making that go from seed, an idea, to an actual thing, to fruit. That's the same journey. You have to plant that seed. You have to find the right soil, the right people that even value that seed. That's the soil. You have to plant it, you have to water it, you have to work it. You have to give it love, time, attention. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to educate yourself. You have to network. You have to do things that's watering it. You understand? Most important thing, you have to give it time. You have to have enough patience to know that this is part of the process. And then you have to be able to recognize when the fruit is ready. You're ready to let that thing be known to the world. I have this product, I have this service, I have this, and it's the fruit that you give to people. And they take the fruit and they like it, they don't like it. You find out your market, who likes it, how much they value for it, and you sell your fruit. Or maybe it's not a fruit that's for sale. Maybe that's the one you want to give to someone you love. But, man, that's God. That's God quality. And so back in the day, growing up, Wu-Tang, you listen to, you know what I'm saying, 5%ers, and they talk about God body. What's up, God? Call you God. People be, you ain't a God. You ain't me. Call you a God. But you have the ability to create and create life. You a God. Grow food. Become godly.
Well, Fire, we give thanks for the reason in the same way, and let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, man. You can find us on Instagram at Free Haven Farms. Like you see it on my hat there. You can find us on our website is freehaveneducationalfarms.com. Like I said, we have courses that we do all throughout the season, but we're starting a new course in September, start of the school year. So it's the Grow Your Own Academy. That's going to be weekly classes. It's going to be live meetups that we do, workshops. You have access not just to my books, but more books that we're about to create. You can find this book on our website. You can order the ebook, the live one. And then something that I'm also about to transition to is a virtual farmers market. So we're creating a virtual farmers market to use technology as a tool to connect us. You know what I'm saying? To people that want to access truly organic food, truly, highly nutritious food that you can use as medicine. It's just not the same that you're gonna buy in the grocery store. And so we create an online farmers market. You can order it there and pick it up and things. But we don't ship. People always ask me, you ship? It goes against my philosophy. I preach localized food systems, and that we need to localize everything, and that you need to think globally but act locally. and that you need to do what you can do to build the things that you want to have within your own ecosystem, and not make it so that you have to always travel to someone else's ecosystem. And so we want people to continue to learn and grow food, connect to their farmers, support their local farmers, support their organic, sustainable, small scale, family, regenerative farms. Because the game is dominated by big farms, major farm corporations, you understand, that have most of the farmland, get most of the money, and most of the support. So every time, you go to your farmer's market, and every time you connect with, your black farmer, your local farmer, your small farmer, man, you're doing a service for the good. So it's not just, I'm a small drop in the bucket, and I'm only here for, we have expiration dates. So it's not, we can't take the food with us, we can't take this with us, we can't take none of it with us, we have to leave it. And so that's what I leave is the knowledge. Right now, even more than growing food, I'm focused on growing growers, growing the knowledge, So you'll see me more in these spaces, and doing more work in that space, because I've grown food for a long time. It's time to pass the torch a little. Yeah, but
Serious thing, fight. We give thanks.